My name's Tom Elliott and welcome to another financial markets update for Hodges Real Estate. Well, the Australian economy, I think, has actually turned a positive corner in the last 1 or 2 months. Now, a couple of important things have happened. First, economists were surprised on the upside, which is a way of saying they were happier than what they expected, because the March unemployment data showed an improvement in the Australian economy. Whereas many people had thought unemployment was going to head well north of 6%, nationally unemployment fell down to just 5.8%. Now, here in Victoria, the news was not quite so good. Unemployment was steady at 6.4%. The only bit of bad news with the unemployment data is that it seems, and remember you always have to take these monthly figures with a grain of salt, but it seems that we might be losing full-time jobs but gaining more part-time jobs. Part-time jobs, of course, are not quite so good for the property market because people, well, they don't earn as much and they can't necessarily depend upon them. Still, a drop in the unemployment rate is very, very welcome. Secondly, what does this mean for interest rates? Well, at the moment, Joe Hodges has come out and said that he's rather unhappy with the Reserve Bank of Australia. Now, this is significant for 2 reasons. One is I don't think it's right for the Treasurer to criticise the Reserve Bank. The Reserve Bank is an independent statutory body. It's responsible for setting monetary policy. Monetary policy is probably too important to be left to the politicians. Therefore, it's not a good thing for a very senior politician, in this case the Treasurer, to be criticising it. But the real reason he's upset is because the Reserve Bank has said that monetary policy is now neutral. Put in English, interest rates are on hold at 2.5%. Now, I'm on record as saying that I don't think interest rates will fall any further in this country. Indeed, just a month or so ago, they started going up in New Zealand. And I think the next move, to the extent that there is one in the near future, will be up. But Joe Hodges, of course, would like weaker interest rates, not so much for people's mortgages, but because he wants the Australian dollar to go down. Now, speaking of the A-dollar, people who trade foreign currencies have looked at the unemployment data. They've looked at, the fact that Asian demand, in particular China, but increasingly these days Japan, is still quite strong. Not very strong, but quite strong. And they've decided over the past couple of months to buy the A-dollar. Now, when the A-dollar was getting sold off until recently, it hit a low of around 88, 89 cents. Right now, it's back up to almost 94 cents. When interest rates go up, or people think they will go up, currencies tend to go up as well. And that's unfortunately for Mr. Hodges what we're seeing. Mr. Hodges, the Treasurer, of course, wants to see the A-dollar lower because he'd like the beleaguered manufacturing sector to get some sort of a shot in the arm. Frankly, I think trying to hope the currencies will go the way you want them to go is a mug's game. It just can't happen. The Reserve Bank struggles to move currencies around. The Treasurer similarly will have a lack of success in doing this. Let's go back to the overseas economies. The US is still proving an engine of growth for the world at the moment. Just a few short years ago, America was in serious trouble. A recipe of weak monetary policy, that is printing money, and also lots of government spending has caused a recovery in America. US unemployment is down around the 6.5% level. US growth figures are up around 3.5% to, in some cases, 4% per annum, depending on which series you look at. This is all very, very good. And increasingly, America is probably going to lead the world economy out of the slump it's been in over the past few years. China, I mentioned Asia before. Chinese demand is still a tad on the weak side, but weak is only weak in China by Chinese standards. It's still around 7% per annum, and that's very, very strong. And of course, good news for Australia. One of the reasons the A-dollar is being so obstinately strong. Russia, as we know, in the last month has caused waves in the international community by moving on the Crimean Peninsula in the Ukraine. As I said last month, unless you live in Crimea, this is really nothing to worry about. Some people have said that Vladimir Putin may be the new Stalin, or at least trying to recreate the old Soviet Union. The point is this: it is largely an affair confined to the Ukraine and to Russia and need not affect people over here. And finally, Europe. I just saw an interesting piece of analysis recently suggesting that European share markets could be the pick of the bunch over the next year. European shares have been really hammered in recent times, mainly because the outlook for Europe has been so bad. But of course, Europe is unlikely to stay bad forever. And given that share markets are not backward-looking but forward-looking beasts, so this particular analyst just thought European shares might be the place for people to look at parking their money. Now, what does all this mean for local property? I do want to talk about the budget in a moment, but I've got to say it's more of the same when it comes to local property. Now, up in Sydney, real estate agents are talking about a herd mentality developing, particularly the upper end of the property market. People looking around and just saying, if I don't buy, someone else will snatch this from me, and they're seeing some spectacular results, particularly in the better areas of the city. Here in Melbourne, as is often the case, things are a little bit more sedate. However, clearance rates still very strong, between 70 and 74%, depending on whether you look at RP data or Real Estate Institute of Victoria, or indeed some of the other series that are out there. Property prices, again, hard to measure, because every house is its own individual and unique thing. You don't resell the same house each week as you do in the share market, for example, when each share is resold many times a day. But housing prices are still strong, and in the past I thought house prices this year in Melbourne would only go up between 5, 6, 7, 8% at the most. I now reckon it's probably more like another 10%, which is what we saw last calendar year. Great news if you already own property, not such good news if you're looking to get in the market. But look, we had some periods of weakness. I've got to say, people had their chance. Some of the things that I think we can look forward to, if that's the right phrase to use here, is an increase in the pension age. It'll be over a couple of decades, probably out to over past 2030, but I think it's inevitable that the age pension will eventually not kick in until people hit 70. That's up from 65 to 67 at the moment. I think there'll be welfare cutbacks. You'll probably see more work for the dole, less accessibility for certain other forms of welfare and so forth. The sale of Medibank Private has already been well flagged. That will almost certainly go ahead. The only issue is how much money the government will get. And reduced military spending. Now, this is a funny one for a Conservative government, but I reckon you'll find that the big submarine plan that's planned for Australia, not something we think about all the time, but I reckon that will be put off just a few more years. All right, thanks very much for your company. I'm Tom Elliott, and this has been another Financial Markets Update for Hodges Real Estate.